A luxurious cruise ship is overturned by a huge wave, leaving hundreds of people trapped underwater. This movie is Poseidon, and it's worth your attention. The events of the movie take place on a huge cruise liner, Poseidon. Its size and beauty are not inferior to the Titanic. We gradually get acquainted with the passengers of this incredible ship. One of them is a successful gambler named Dylan. The man is admiring a very picturesque sunset. There is also a cute girl, Jennifer, her boyfriend Christian, and her strict father Robert Ramsey on board. The man scolds his daughter for bad behavior, and offended Jennifer immediately leaves the cabin. Here is another passenger. Her name is Elena. She's Latina and she doesn't have a ticket. The girl sneaks into the kitchen and we find out that she was illegally brought aboard by one of the waiters. The guy gives his girlfriend a plate of food and asks her not to leave the cabin. On New Year's Eve, a celebration party is held on the Poseidon. Passengers are told a legend about the sea god in whose honor the ship was named. The famous singer Gloria is invited to stage. Guests in tuxedos and beautiful dresses immediately start dancing. At the same time, Dylan Ramsey and the other men are playing cards. After winning another bet, Dylan leaves the table and accidentally knocks the tablet out of some boy's hands. His mom walks up to them and smiles sweetly. The pretty woman's name is Maggie and her son's name is Connor. Discovering that the lady is single, Dylan immediately starts flirting with her, and Maggie seems to like it a lot. At night, the disco begins. Jennifer is dancing merrily with Chris, when Elena, who actually had to stay in the cabin, appears on the dance floor. An elderly architect named Richard is also traveling on the Poseidon. He orders a bottle of expensive wine and confesses to his stablemates that he likes men. The clock strikes 12. The passengers raise glasses of champagne, balloons and confetti fall from the ceiling, and everyone rejoices in the new year. Everyone except Richard. Looks like the old man is about to jump overboard because of his love problems. Meanwhile, one of the alternate captains suddenly gets some kind of a bad feeling. He looks through the binoculars and sees something terrifying ahead. The man demands to turn the ship urgently. The thing is that a huge wave is approaching the Poseidon. The captain sounds the general alarm. Panic immediately breaks out on board and people scatter in different directions. A giant wave hits the ship. The ship tilts, most of the passengers fall, and some of them even end up overboard. Some of the liner's metal structures break down and collapse as well. The Poseidon first tilts to the side and then overturns upside down. Not all the passengers manage to survive this hell. The fuel tanks explode and many passengers get caught up in a fiery trap. Poseidon is gradually going to the bottom, and it seems that not a single person on board has a chance of salvation. Actually, maybe some people in the game and dance halls will fight for their lives. Among them, we see gambler Dylan, old man Richard, Ramsey, Maggie, and Jennifer. Alas, Jennifer's boyfriend is trapped under a metal structure. The guy is alive, but can't get free. The girl asks for help from Elena, who is passing by, but their efforts are evidently insufficient. Maggie notices that her son Connor is still hanging from the ceiling, clinging to a huge piano. Ramsey grabs a thick curtain and demands the boy to jump down. It turns out he used to work as a fireman. Connor jumps down and soon finds himself in his mother's arms. Meanwhile, the real hell continues to break loose in the dance hall. Bare wires have fallen into the water, and people who survived the wave and flames are now suffering from violent electrical shocks. The surviving captain of the liner claims that the Poseidon was hit by a so-called killer wave. The crew has managed to send an SOS signal, so the main thing is to wait for help. The problem is that in a few hours the ship may end up at the bottom of the ocean. However, the man is not sure if the rescuers can arrive on time. The obstinate Dylan disagrees with the captain. He wants to get to the surface through the bottom of the ship, where the openings for the propeller are located. Ramsey also refuses to waste time. After all, his daughter is still in the dance hall, and he doesn't know whether she is alive or not. Dylan finds Maggie with little Connor. they want to go with him. Ramsey, Richard, and the waiter Valentine, who knows where the stairs are located, also join their group. The protagonists make their way to the ruined kitchen. Their passage is blocked by a pile of debris, with a fire raging behind it. Looks like it's impossible to get to the stairs. Dylan finds the service elevator and opens it with Valentine's help. To get to another stairway, they have to get to the other side of the shaft. The men make a bridge using one of the kitchen tables. This passage looks dangerous as hell. The flames are becoming more and more intense in the kitchen, so they have to hurry. Dylan and Richard go first, then comes little Connor, followed by his mom. Ramsey walks after them, and Valentine is the last to go. Alas, the elevator car hanging in the shaft collapses, and the waiter falls along with it. The galley explodes, and the captain realizes that the surviving people on board may never get help. Well, Dylan's group moves on. Meanwhile, another passenger, Lucky Larry, joins Jennifer and Elena in the dance hall. Together, they struggle to free Chris, and with the help of a lever, they finally succeed. Fortunately, the guy's injury proves to be harmless. They move towards the exit and meet up with Dylan's group. Jennifer is insanely happy to see her dad. The protagonists realize that they need to go further and look for a passage upstairs. They open the next door and get into another room. There, they face a serious problem. The thing is that the passengers are standing in front of a great abyss, which can be crossed only on a small bridge. There's no other way out. Dylan tests the stability of the bridge. Richard manages to get to the other side. Then Maggie and Connor, as well as Elena and Chris. It's Jennifer's turn, but a heavily drunk Lucky Larry intervenes. He insults Ramsey, accusing the man of weakness, and steps smugly onto the bridge, dropping his flask in the process. Alas, the unreliable structure collapses, and the drunken insolent man falls down. This causes another powerful explosion. Dylan, Ramsey, and Jennifer realize that they need to get to the other side somehow. Ramsey offers to go to the back and look for another way, but Dylan grabs a fire hose, attaches it to a beam, jumps into the water, and swims right under the burning fuel. He successfully makes it to the other side and secures the hose to the opposite beam. Thus, he creates a zip line, and using a makeshift carbine, Ramsey and Jennifer get to the other side. Alas, the huge explosion caused by the fall of the bridge causes another catastrophe. The portholes and windows of the dance hall crack and explode under the pressure of the water, and everyone who stayed there with the captain drowns. Meanwhile, our team reaches another compartment, but the door in front of them is locked from the inside. They decide to use the ventilation hatch to get to the upper deck. Almost all the main characters successfully crawl through the narrow tunnel. Elena is frightened, and her teammates literally push her into the hatch by force. However, there appears to be a grate on the other end of the tunnel. It looks like the protagonists are trapped. Moreover, the shaft gradually begins to flood with water. In addition, Richard gets stuck in the tunnel. Overcoming hysteria, Elena manages to rescue the old man, and they crawl further. The most challenging part is still unsolved. They have to open the grate. Using Elena's necklace as a screwdriver, they finally succeed. The main characters open another hatch and get into the water intake compartment. They get to its top. Dylan opens a valve and starts the water supply. It carries the surviving passengers first to the other compartment and then to the other part of the ship. The problem is that the protagonists have to swim underwater for a very long time. Passing one of the flooded corridors, Elena gets tangled in wires and drowns. Other people pull the unfortunate girl out and try to resuscitate her, but it doesn't yield any results. The protagonists continue their way through various rooms and piles of junk, and eventually hear some sounds coming from above. People hope that the rescuers have arrived, but alas, there's no one alive up there. Dylan notices a map of the Poseidon on the wall and finds a way out. The passengers have hope of rescue. They run to the exit, but it turns out that the bow of the ship has gone underwater, and so have the exit hatches. It's impossible to reach them. The protagonists find an unsubmerged cabin and discuss what to do next. Meanwhile, the ship's compartments are filling up with more and more water. Another fire starts, and another explosion occurs. Everything falls and collapses. The Poseidon changes the angle of inclination. Maggie and Connor are carried away by the flow of water. People notice that the water has gone from the bow of the ship, which means they can get out. Everyone runs towards the exit located under the propellers, while Dylan goes to rescue Maggie and Connor. He finds the woman, and together they set off in search of the boy. Ramsey and the rest of the passengers find the desired propellers, and it seems that the life-saving exit is at hand. But it turns out that the propellers are still functioning. Richard opens one of the hatches, which smashes his face. Meanwhile, Dylan and Maggie finally find little Connor. It turns out that the boy accidentally got trapped behind a locked gate. Fortunately, he is not hurt, and through a heroic effort, Dylan manages to rescue the boy. Ramsey brings a map of the Poseidon. He explains that they have to turn off the propellers, otherwise they will never get out of the ship. To do this, they need to get to the flooded generator and shut it down. The problem is that the generator compartment is too far away. Not a single person can hold his breath long enough to swim there and return. Ramsey decides to sacrifice his own life to save his beloved daughter, her fiancé, and the rest of the surviving passengers. The man swims to the generator, but he runs out of oxygen before he can shut it down. The only thing he manages to do is reverse the direction of the propellers. Dylan, along with Maggie and Connor, get to the rest of the group and learn about Ramsey's heroic act. The protagonists realize that the propellers are turning in the opposite direction, which means they can throw something and break them. Dylan throws a gas cylinder into the open hatch, but it nearly costs him his life. The cylinder explodes and breaks the propeller blades, hitting Dylan with a blast wave. Once again, the man manages to survive. He really is the lucky man here. The 6 survivors crawl out through the propeller openings and jump straight into the ocean. They spot a life raft near the stern and swim straight to it. Climbing onto the lifeboat, the protagonists row away from the sinking ship with all their might. Once reaching the safe distance, they witness the horror of the giant liner sinking to the bottom. Dylan fires a flare into the sky. It explodes and illuminates everything around with a bright light. Soon, rescue helicopters appear in the sky, and the survivors scream with happiness.